So let me get the recording going and talk you through this. So yeah, so I'm just going to record the first part of class today when we talk about the grade improvement process, and then I'm going to have to stop the recording because I can't post the questions from the FRQs while we review them because that's secured information from College Board. But I want to have this grade improvement process documented for the international students. So first comments about your exam grade. For A-Day classes, I'm done and they're posted. I finished last night and posted them on Axis. When you look on Axis in the comment, you'll see like multiple choice, and then the number percent is your raw percent in multiple choice, and then FRQ percent, and then that's your raw percent in FRQ. So if you average those together, that would be your raw score. And then what's actually in the grade column is the curved score. So if you're looking at your raw score, which you'd have to average those two, this is how you would determine your grade from the raw score. So if you look in the comments and average those two together, wherever your average falls, this is about where you might expect your grade to fall. Our curve is slightly better than the AP curve for this exam. Normally I don't have it quite as good as it was, but normally I can also offer a Saturday alternate so you could take it again. And there were not enough Saturdays available because of too many school events and other AP teachers needing the Saturday because they couldn't get it done in class. So, since we can only do it one, I made the curve a little bit nicer for you. So if you look at your curved score, then it's roughly, if you got A, that's roughly a 5. If you got a B, that's a 4. If you got a C, that's a 3. Okay, so if you're going by curved scores, it's these percentages, or uncurved scores, it's basically these percentages. If you're going by your curved scores, go by letter grade that you would earn. Okay, now it's like I said, if you got like a 90, because my curve is a little bit better than theirs, you're flirting with whether it's a 5 or a 4. Does that make sense? It may still be a 4. It's not like a hard fix, but at least you get an idea. Oh, I'm like, if you got 95, wow, I'm in that 5 range. If I can do as well on the actual test, I'm going to get a 5, or I have a really good shot at 5. If you're in the C range after the curve, you could say, well, at least I can feel pretty confident that I'm going to get a passing score and potentially earn college credit.
I'll take the 3.
Yeah, and if I practice some more, maybe I can boost it up to a 4 or 5. You know, and it's not even just. Some of it is how well prepared you are. Some of it is how well you happen to be thinking, how clearly you're thinking that day. You know, if you got a lot of things going on in your life and maybe more distracted and not is able to focus. It also can be the questions that came up. Maybe the questions that came up in my version were really hard for you, but the ones you see on May 5th may be easier, or vice versa. The ones I gave you, you may think, oh, those weren't too bad. And then on May 5th, you're like, where are these questions coming from? You just never know. So it's not like a guarantee, but I will say that generally speaking, I would say around 80% of students end up doing about the same or better than what they do on the actual in-class one. So while it's not a guarantee, I would say the vast majority of you will probably do at least as well on the actual exam on May 5th as you did on this one, and probably better. If it changes, it's most often an improvement because you have more time. It's a week away still, so you got another week to keep practicing and improving and just learning from going over it today. So, which we will be doing after I explain the grade improvement process. So any questions about the grade as you look at it in Axis, just like generally speaking about that? All right.
Oh, actually,
Yeah, Andy?
so about the uncurved one,
Uh-huh.
is it like, so is like the multiple choice one, like your grade, like just the multiple choice, is that out of 100, or is that like out
It's
of
your
50?
first, yeah, it's your percent. They're both percentages. So
Okay, just making sure.
yeah. Yeah, so if it says 40, that doesn't mean you got 40 out of 50 or 40 out of 42. That means you got 40%.
Unfortunately.
Yeah,
Okay.
if it says 60, you didn't somehow get 60 out of 42. Yeah, it is your percent in both cases. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, because the curve is so steep, there were a lot of people that did get, 40% or whatever, 30%. And it was interesting. A lot of students said, man, I thought the multiple choice was so much easier. And then when I graded them, I was like,
Multiple choice
your
was
free
harder.
response was easy. Your free response grade was better. Not always, but it was interesting to me to see.
response was worse than the multiple choice.
Yeah, some
My
students
free response
did
was better.
a lot better on one than the other, and some students were kind of almost the same. So yeah, it really varied a lot. Okay, So we'll talk more about the exam and we'll definitely review. We'll go over all 4 FRQs today and practice thinking through what is College Board expecting from you when they ask you these kinds of questions. All right, but first let's talk about the grade improvement process. As you're looking at your grade now, if you have everything turned in, if you have no missing work, you're done. There is nothing else that's going to affect your grade unless you choose to do one of these optional things. Okay, so if your grade is what you want it to be, you have no more work to do for this class. Okay, if your grade is not what you want it to be, I got an offer for you. All right, so here is your offer. So if you're online and you expect to do this, I would take a snapshot. If you're in here and you expect to do this, I would take a picture so that you don't have to memorize it. Okay. Let's see. I guess I could also put a snapshot of this somewhere on the bulletin board, but not everyone will see it. So I'll post it somewhere on Access, but since you're here or you're online, take a snapshot, take a picture, and let me talk you through it. So in your grade, your overall grade is composed of 5 parts. The semester exam, which you just took, is 20% of your overall grade. The test category is 40%, and we only had 1 test because of the way the school year went. And so the 1 test was 40% of your grade, and that's why I made it basically open book, open note, because it was on positive physics and gave you 3 weeks to do it. Quizzes, because I would not normally be that lenient on a test. But so that because it was the only one, I wanted to give you as much opportunity as possible. And then quizzes are only 10%. We did have quite a few quizzes. We had 5 quizzes. I usually have 1 or 2 quizzes and 3 or 4 tests. This time it was flip-flop because of the COVID restrictions and hybrid teaching and stuff. But so quizzes, there's 5 of them, but they're only 10%. So if your quiz percentage is decent, that's not the best bang for your buck, right? I mean, I'm just being honest with you here, being straightforward about the strategy of improving your grade. If your quiz percentage is not bad, that's not where you would want to try to work to improve for efficiency, right? Homework, also just 10%. So again, if your homework percent's decent, while you can attack that to try to improve your grade, that's probably not the best bang for your buck. Lab grades are 20%, so it's a little bit more helpful. Now, you have to kind of do 2 things as you're looking at your grade. You guys all know on Access how to look and see what your grade is for every category, right? What your percentage is. So first you should do that and see what is my percentage in each of these categories. And probably whichever one is the lowest, think about these category percentages and decide if that's the one you should pursue. If your lowest one is quizzes, but it's not that low, then pick your next lowest that has a higher percentage bearing weight on your overall grade, right? So be a little bit strategic and decide which one of these will help you most. And it'll be different for every student. And like I said, some of you already have the grade you want. You don't need to worry about any of this. You can just ignore it. But here's how you would do it. So let's say your semester exam grade that you just took, that's your lowest one, and that's the one you want to boost because it is 20% of your grade. What you do is go to AP Classroom, and you're going to write paragraphs about daily videos. You're going to watch the video and write a paragraph about it. It doesn't have to be like a page long, just a few sentences. 3 sentences is good. Okay. So it doesn't have to be massive, but just a quick summary of the daily videos, because they're only like 10-minute videos. So it's not like you're going to have to be able to write a whole page unless you dictate it or something. So, just summarize it in a paragraph. And down below in the blue, you can see it says for exam, the way it is awarded, you get 1, for every 1 daily video paragraph you write, you get 1% added to your exam grade. Okay. But the possibility is only up to the median percent. So let's say your exam grade percent is 80, your curved grade is 80. You can only get up to a 90. So do 10 paragraphs and you'll go from 80 to 90. Let's say your exam grade is 90. You can only get to 95. So do 5 paragraphs. Make sense? So you can choose, there's dozens and dozens of videos on there. Every unit has about 10 or 15 videos. So no one scored so low that there's not enough videos that they could raise it up to the halfway. So
That would be really low.
yeah, I mean,
No,
even if you got a 0, you can only go to 50, and there's
-4,000
more than 50 videos. So it's literally impossible for you to run out of options. But just remember though, that you just get 1 point for every paragraph, 1% for every paragraph, and only up to the halfway between what your score is and 100%. So if you're at 70, you can get up to 85, right? So 15 paragraphs will get you up to 85. Don't do 20 paragraphs you need to spend that time doing something else for one of your other classes or getting ready for the exam, right? Now, one of the reasons I've chosen this is because you can choose whatever unit you want for those daily videos. If you really struggle with circular motion, watch those videos. It's going to help you prepare for May 5th. Write the paragraph. It's going to help you review and think about what you're learning for May 5th. So pick the units. Don't just automatically go to unit 1 if you know kinematics really well. Go to the unit that you struggle with, watch those videos, write paragraphs. You're doing double duty. You're earning bonus points on your exam grade and you're preparing for the exam on May 5th.
Dang.
All right.
Now that's epic.
All right. So a lot of you will probably choose that because for a lot of you, I mean, there were quite a few A's, but for a lot of you, the exam grade was lower than your class average, and it is 20%. So that's one way you can get a pretty big boost, potentially, depending on what your exam grade was. The second one is probably your best bang for the buck if you didn't do that well on the test. Now, some of you got 100% on it because it was positive physics, and you just took your time over the 3 weeks and you made sure you got every question right. Others of you got, like a 98. And so, I mean, the average score in all 5 of my classes together was 96%. So on average, the most anyone can add here is 2%. But there were some of you that were lower than that. So if you're in that category where yours was lower, this might be a really good option for you. And it's similar. You can go up to the median. So let's say that for whatever reason, you did get a low score. Maybe you turned it in late or something like that, and you did get a low score on that test category. Well, if you go back in, because it was, oh, did you have a question, Kate? Sorry, I saw your hand for a minute.
Oh, yeah, I was just curious, when it brings up to the median percent, is it rounded up or down? Like if you have 7 points,
What do you mean?
I mean, like, if you have, I don't know, an odd number of points.
Oh, I just do the half.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll literally go exactly in half. So even if it's, something 0.5, I'll even go to like quarter. I'll just divide it in half and give you those points. So you get a full percent for doing the video. So you might have to go like, if you need 12.3 points, just do 13 videos and you'll get the full amount. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah, good question. So for the test one, since it was positive physics unit 23 and you did the assessment, if you go to the work section, and you can see down here at the bottom in blue is a little bit more clarification. For every one positive physics unit 23 work section that you complete and get 100%, you get 1% added to your test score. Okay, so there were 23 sections.
Oh.
Okay, there were 23 skills like inquiry, review, challenge, there's 23 categories. You just pick the ones you want to do and get 100% on that category, and it adds a percent to your test grade. Okay,
That's epic.
there's 23 of them, so you could potentially add 23% to your test grade. I don't think anyone needs that much, but if you do, you could do that as long as it gets you up to no more than halfway from your current grade to the 100%. So you can get halfway up. Does that make sense?
And it's the corrected score?
It's the corrected score, yeah. So I'm just, I think they call it completed percent or something like that, whatever that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can kind of correct it as you go because it's the work section. As long as your completed percent is 100% in that category, then you'll get another percent added to your test grade. So for those first 2 things, what you need to do is just like, if you're doing the semester exam daily video paragraphs, type them out, write them out, take a picture, email it to me. There's nowhere to submit it on Access because then I would have to make it a separate grade, and then I'd have to average those 2 grades. And so all I'm going to do is literally change your exam grade. And so you just send me an email with your paragraphs, and then I look and say, oh, they did 10 paragraphs, add 10 points to their exam grade if that doesn't pass the median.
Let's say like you don't like one of the paragraphs. Should we just like redo it?
For me,
Yeah.
I mean, unless it's ridiculous, I'm not going to say, oh, I don't like that.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, all you're doing is summarizing the video. So unless you're writing about your summer vacation or your girlfriend or something, I'm,
Banana slugs.
yeah, I mean, if you're writing about the context of the video, then you're going to get the points. I'm not going to, you're just summarizing what you're learning from it. Yeah. And then for the positive physics one, let's say you wanted to add 6% to your test grade to get to the median. So you just do 6 skills, show that like in those 6 areas, it's got 100%, take a snapshot, email it to me. I'll say, oh, yep, they got 600s plus 6 on your test grade. And I'll just literally change it in Access, and I'll make a comment why it changed.
Concepts too.
All right,
Yeah.
questions on semester exam or test? those are, I think, the two biggest bang for your buck for most students. That's why I want to spend most time on them. I'll go pretty quickly through these other ones. So for quizzes, we had 5 quizzes and they were on positive physics. You can see down in the blue, we mainly did, well, one was called Forces Quiz and it was on multiple units, but unit 7 was the primary focus. And then the other ones were literally called unit 10, unit 13, unit 15. So those are the 5 quizzes. The 7 is the one called Forces Quiz on your Access page. So look at those quizzes. If you see that any one of those is really poor, then do the work section for that unit. Show me 100% on your completed, and I'll change that quiz grade to 100%. Okay, so if you got a 70 on one of them, you do the work section, send it in, the 70 becomes 100. Okay, so that's how the quiz section works. It's only 10% of your grades, so unless you really bombed one of those quizzes, that's probably not the best bang for your buck, but some of you may want that or need that. And then homework. So homework percent. If you watch 2 of the review videos, now the review videos are the ones that are on YouTube. I showed you those, how they're linked to AP Classroom. You can click on it, go to YouTube and watch their review videos. Those are longer. They're not 10, 12 minutes. They're 30, 40 minutes. So you only need to watch 2 of them and write a paragraph about each. And this is actually an extra assignment. So if you look on Access after the exam, it says like homework recovery and lab recovery. So these are actually added assignments that are optional. If you don't do it, I'll just put exempt for you. If you do it and you do it correctly, you'll get 100%. Now, here's why that's so helpful. In homework this semester, I don't know how many assignments we had, 7 or 8. It added up to a total of 180 points. This is going to give you a 100 out of 100. So it's pretty big boost if homework is where you're hurting. Okay. And then for lab, it's similar. Lab is, if you go to the Explore Learning website and on the bulletin board page of our class, there's a link to it. So you can go to that Gizmo site. And when you click on the class tab, I think there's 5 or 6 gizmos I put in there for you to choose from. Pick which one ever interests you the most. Complete the student exploration sheet for it and turn it in. And for the homework and the labs, you can actually turn those in on Access because there is actually an assignment grade on Access. So just submit it on Access. Email me, hey, Mr. Webb, I submitted the, whatever gizmo on Access. I'll grade it. And if you do it correctly, you'll get 100 points. And we only had 110 points in labs. So again, you'll get 100 out of 100 for doing that accurately. So that's, again, a big boost. So that is how you can earn back points in any or all of the categories. You don't have to pick one. You can do a little of all. Whatever will help you the most is what I would advise. Yeah, Andy?
Is this just due like at the end of the year?
This is due by May 20th.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So May 20th is when all assignments have to be done because exams start after that. So May 20th is the deadline for everything. I guess we could put that up here at the top. So don't forget to mention that to the other classes as well. So everything just needs to be either emailed to me or submitted on Access by May 20th. Now, you may choose to do some now and then see how that affects your grade and then do, well, I need to do a little more. So you don't have to wait. You can do it anytime between now and May 20th. Any other questions on how you can improve your overall grade for the semester? Yeah, okay.
After we do the final, didn't you mention that we were gonna learn about some other things that were optional?
So yeah, so here's what we're gonna do, just speaking beyond this project. Today, we're gonna review the FRQ portion of the exam you just took, kind of go over those 4 FRQs and discuss them, explain how they were graded and what the rubric's looking for. And then Monday, I'm gonna briefly talk to you about the online app that you use if you're taking the exam June 9th. Just take a few minutes for that. And then we're going to go over multiple choice questions from your exam that you just took. Now, we won't have time to go over all 42. So what I did is I went through on AP Classroom and I looked at all the questions that were missed by the most students. And I picked the top, and any question that was missed by half or more, I looked at. And there were 18 questions out of the 42 that in at least one class. More than at least half the students missed it. So those are the 18. There were some questions where nobody missed it, like everyone got it right. So I'm not going to review that. So I picked the ones that seemed to cause the most trouble consistently. And those are the ones we'll review Monday. And then the next time we would be scheduled to have class is Wednesday, but that's the day you take the exam, so you don't have to attend classes on the day you have an AP exam. Oh, by the way, if you're taking the exam that day, which I think most of you are, on May 5th, next Wednesday, a week from today, you're either going to be in Disciples Chapel or Bedrosian, so you have to look on the list that's posted over at the office to know which room. And on the College Board website, it says that it starts at noon. But because so many students that are taking AP Physics also are taking an English one in the morning, they got permission to move it to 1. So the AP Physics exam actually starts at 1 next Wednesday, not noon.
That's hype.
That's not
Okay.
good.
I could actually go to like,
I have like a track meet right at 3, and so it was gonna be close, but now it might just miss it.
Yeah,
It's okay.
I get to go to guest speaker now, so that's hype.
yeah. Okay, so that's just a quick comment on it. Did you have another question, Nat, or did I answer what you were?
Oh, you were answered it.
Okay.
I was just gonna ask like how we knew where.
Yeah.
each
I
building
saw,
was.
I saw some schedules being posted over in the Price Building, I think around the office area that says like which room you're gonna be in. So if you haven't seen it by the time Wednesday rolls around, just get here a little early, go to Disciples Chapel, and if your name's on the list, you're there. If not, you're in Bedrosian. Those are the 2 places for physics.
Epic.
So, all right. Okay, then back to continuing on. So then that Wednesday you can come, I'll be here. So like I'll be around, but I'm not gonna be taking attendance. I'm not gonna be running the Zoom unless anyone says, hey, Mr. Webb, can you Zoom with me so I can ask you a few questions? I'm just gonna be here. And it should be like office hours on Wednesday for you guys. If you want to come in and ask questions, if you want to email me and ask me to Zoom with you to answer questions, I'm happy to do it. Because I'll just be here kind of hoping and praying for you guys to do well on that test on Wednesday afternoon. And then Wednesday afternoon, you'll obviously be taking the test for the vast majority of you. So no afternoon classes will be held, obviously. And then after May 5th, all classes from that point for us are optional. So I will be here. And if you're working on some of these assignments to improve your grade and need help, come in. Or email me and say, hey, Mr. Webb, can you Zoom with me to help me on these positive physics questions or whatever? I can do that. I'll just be available. Or if you just need a quiet place to study, you know, you can like come in and study for your other exams. It'll probably be pretty quiet in here most of the time. Or if you are bored and want to come in and play a card game with me or something, I'll have some card games laying around because I'm just going to be here to help and might be subbing for some other teachers or whatever, just trying to help out. But I'll be available, but you won't be required to attend after May 5th. Or starting May 5th, actually.
Or so we won't even have to like come in and check in with you for attendance or anything?
Nope. Yeah.
Yeah.
So once May 5th hits, I'd be happy to see any of you and all of you whenever you want, but you're not required to be here. You're not, all these things, these are all optional. None of these assignments are required. So after, starting May 5th, basically, once you get done with that exam, you're pretty much done with this class unless you need or want to do some of this stuff. But I'll definitely be around. I'm not going to be just like chilling at home. I'll still be here, teach my EE class and being available to help.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Electrical engineering.
all right. Any other questions about schedule or about grade recovery, anything? All right, I have a few generic comments that I'm going to share about the FRQs before I shut off the video. And then I'll shut it off before we actually start looking at the questions themselves. So here's a few just general notes I jotted down while I was grading them. I ended up not using the lockdown browser. Beforehand, I told you I was going to, and I fully intended to. But the more I started practicing with it and trying it and realizing, oh, every student has to individually download it on their own computer. And as I don't know if you guys know, but the students that are in China have often a terrible time with Access and AP Classroom. They get knocked off, they type in their answers and then it resets and all their answers are gone. And like, it's a pain for them big time. So I was like, it's already hard enough. I don't want to add one more hurdle. So in the last minute, I decided I'm not going to do it. So that's why we didn't use lockdown browser. There was enough going on. I didn't want to try to add one more thing for you to have to think about. I will briefly demonstrate Monday how the online app works if you're taking the June 9th online version. All right, second and third kind of go together. When you're answering FRQs, you have to balance. It's like you're walking a tightrope. Some of you wrote too much. So some of you like restated the question to answer it. And You don't need to do that. I know in English, they tell you to do that, and that's kind of part of writing a good English essay. It's not part of what they want in physics. They want you to get to the point. Okay, so don't restate the question. They know the question. Tell them the answer. Okay. Now you might need to refer back to key words in the question, but don't restate it. And if they don't ask you to give an explanation, and the key word you're looking for, they may say support or justify or explain or rationalize. Justify and explain tend to be the most common words you're looking for there. If they don't say that, you don't need to explain it. A lot of students did lose a lot of time justifying or explaining why those students' answers were correct or incorrect on those questions, and it didn't ask you to do that. And so just be really careful that you read the question carefully and only address what's asked. Now, the converse of that, or the opposite of that, is some students wrote too little, like not on those correct ones, because all you had to say was statement 1 was correct. Like that was it. But on some of the other ones, some students just like wrote a formula. You can't just write a formula. You could write the formula and explain how the formula helps you answer it. But if it does ask you to justify or explain something, make sure that you don't just list an equation. An equation is not an explanation. Equation is what you can use as a tool to help you explain. Okay. And I want to, in the last several classes, as we were wrapping up our last bit of notes, I did this frequently. Things like, there is no net force. That means there is no acceleration, and that there is no acceleration, there is no change in velocity. Okay. And I was trying to get you to think about a chain of events, right? That's the logic and the thought process you want to give in your answers. And I'll try to illustrate that a couple times when we go over the FRQs today. You want to say, not just that because it's moving faster, it goes higher, like on that dart question. Well, why does moving faster make it go higher? Talk about the energy and the momentum train that gets you from one point to another point. You can't just go from A to Z. You have to give all the stuff in between to explain it when they ask for that justification. So it's a tightrope, and it takes time and practice. So the best thing you can do to get good at it between now and next Wednesday is to practice FRQs. And even if you don't answer them, just read them and read the scoring book guides and start to see, oh, when they ask that kind of question, they're looking for this detail. Oh, when they ask that, all they want is this. And you just start getting more and more comfortable. All right, the next one. If you think energy could be used to explain the question, then use it. Because often energy was a key concept on the rubric and students never mentioned it. And it was the best way to address it, and sometimes the only way to accurately address it. The fifth one, what is functional dependence and what is directly proportional? I think you all have some concept of those terms, but functional dependence is really just saying, if I have an equation like y equals 3x squared, how does y, or how does x depend on y, or y depend on x? It doesn't really matter which way you're thinking about it. So saying things like, as the y increases, the x increases, or as the x increases, the y increases. That's functional dependence. You're explaining how one affects the other. How is one functionally dependent on the other? Okay. Now, directly proportional, a lot of students misused. So in something like this, they might say, y is directly proportional to x. And that is not true. Y is directly proportional to x squared, right? It's not going to create a linear graph if you graph this, right? It's quadratic. So to make it linear, you would have to do some linearization, right? So if this is, you can say it's directly proportional to x squared, but don't say it's just directly proportional to x, okay? And I'll illustrate that as we go through as well. I didn't count off if you made that kind of mistake on the exam, and I don't think that they would on the actual grading, but that would be one, again, if I were, that didn't come up in the questions I've graded in the past. So, but if it did come up, I would go to my committee and say, hey, are we giving credit for that if they misused that phrasing? Like if they didn't say x squared and they just said x, I think you would probably get the point because you're still showing the functional dependence, but that's something I want to make sure you understand the difference in. 6, when you're explaining what to graph. So several questions said, hey, what would you graph to create a linear graph, right? Don't just say something like, some students just had like m over v. This is a case of writing too little. What does m over v mean? Like what's on the x-axis, what's on the y-axis? You can't use like math class shorthand or anything. It needs to be, this is on the x, this is on the y. It doesn't have to be long sentences. It can be that brief, but you need to specify what's on the x-axis, what's on the y-axis. not just what they are. And often it doesn't matter which axis you pick, they'll count it either way, but you have to specify one thing is on one axis, one thing is on the other axis, so they know that you understand there's two variables. Because there were some students that just wrote, you would graph the period versus what, like, and so they're never gonna assume that if you just say M and V, they're not gonna assume, oh, they mean M on the Y and V on the X. They're like, what do they mean, M over V on the Y? What, we're not gonna assume anything, even though it might be logical. So just clearly say this on the Y, this on the X. And then the last thing, when describing graphs, talk about how the X-axis, Y-axis, slope, intercepts, how are those things changing? And then what do they refer to, like, what is being measured on the X-axis, what is being measured on the Y? A lot of students, when they were asked to describe a change in the graph, like on the, I think it's the second question, first or second question, they described a lot of good physics. Like their description was not false in any way, but it never referred to the graph. And the question said, explain how the graph changes. But you never would talk about the graph, so you couldn't earn the points. You had good physics, but didn't answer the question. So if it ever says describe a graph, which online especially it often does, because they're not going to ask you to draw it, you need to talk about how the graph is changing. So we'll illustrate a lot of these things today, but those are some general things I wanted to highlight. So now let's start digging in. Let me stop the recording and let's start looking at those 4 FRQs.